It's not really a shock that the AAA gaming industry has been struggling a bit the last few years. Budgets are skyrocketing, price to entry goes up along with that, and a lot of gamers are starting to feel burnt out on the AAA gaming world. Let me know if you're in that group. And they're turning to indie and AA alternatives, or just continuing to play the AAA games that they already like. Destiny, Fortnite, so on and so forth. But one of the biggest games of 2024 so far has been Helldivers 2. A AA shooter developed by Arrowhead Game Studios and published by Sony for the PS5 and the PC. Now, leading up to the release, nobody was expecting this game to be such a runaway success, but that's usually how it happens. And here we are over a month after release, and it's still topping the Steam charts. It's boasting a massive player base on both the PlayStation and the PC. So what happened here? Why has Helldivers 2 exploded where other 2024 live service games have completely flopped and failed? And is the industry going to learn the right lessons from it? Today, we're going to take a deep dive into the success of Helldivers 2. We're going to see if we can analyze how we got here and what it's going to mean for the future of the industry. So you let me know in the comments if you're still playing the game, if you've tried it yet, or if maybe this video makes you try it. If you haven't yet, drop a like. And remember, if you get anything from G2A.com, use code CHAOS. Get yourself some cash back. The link is in the description. Now first, I feel a little backstory is necessary to lay out here because the origins of this game, they're actually pretty interesting. Helldivers 2 may be a third-person shooter, but the first game was very different. Helldivers 1 came out in 2015, and it was a top-down shoot-'em-up that got positive reviews, but it was a little niche due to the top-down perspective and the retro sci-fi presentation. Now, like the sequel, the original game was very obviously inspired by classic sci-fi military movies, Alien, Starship Troopers, one of my favorite, but the gameplay was more laid back than what we got this year. When crafting the sequel, Arrowhead Game Studios basically decided to take everything they did in the original game and crank it up to 11, meaning switching the perspective from top-down to the proper third-person shooter, while also learning more, actually leaning more, into the Starship Trooper influences, the story, the world, the presentation, all of it, which I think was absolutely brilliant. Now, interestingly, the technical side of the game's development was a bit of a gamble because the project was built with an engine that was discontinued in the middle of the process, which is something that rarely happens in game development. When a game is built on something like the Unreal Engine or even Frostbite, the developers know that whoever made the engine is readily available for consultation, and the engine itself is going to be updated and optimized. However, development on Helldivers 2 started on the Autodesk Stingray engine, if you've ever heard of that, also known as the BitSquid engine, which was sold and rebranded in the late 2010s before being completely shut down in March of 2022, right smack dab in the middle of Helldivers 2's development. So Arrowhead Game Studios founder stated in a recent interview that the team had to put in a ridiculous amount of work just making sure the engine was still functional and capable of creating what they were going for. They were far too deep into development to switch engines, and there was simply no way for them to craft Helldivers 2 in a way that would mirror other major game releases, because basically every other game release is built on an engine that is still being supported. This does explain some of the technical issues that have been in Helldivers 2 since release, but ultimately, I think they're totally forgivable because of the circumstances. Now, like most games that come out now, Helldivers 2 leaked a couple times before launch, first time being in September of 2021, and then again in August of 2022, before being properly revealed in May of 2023 during a PlayStation showcase. Then it finally launched in February of this year on both the PS5 and the PC, a move that ended up being extremely smart on Sony's part because according to several inside reports, roughly 60% of the game's copies were actually sold on the PC instead of PlayStation, despite being a PlayStation Studios game. Does that mean more PlayStation games are going to be released on the PC day one? Does this mean Last of Us 3 and God of War 6 are going to be multi-platform? That's a topic for another day, but I would say there's a chance. Now, Helldivers 2 was never a massive IP like most PlayStation franchises, nor was it the kind of game that people were expecting to blow up in a way that it did. But I believe there are several factors that contributed here. And just so we're on the same page, Helldivers 2 sold over 1 million copies in the first week, 3 million copies in the first month. On top of that, it became the most played game on the PlayStation Network, surpassing Call of Duty and Fortnite, and it's been sitting in the Steam top 10 most played ever since launch day. It's peaked at almost 500,000 concurrent players, so it's safe to say it's here to stay for a while. But why? First, we have to talk about the aesthetics. It leans heavily into Starship Troopers influences, but it also perfectly captures a certain style of military sci-fi that is eternally cool. A lot of sci-fi video games now can get kind of similar with the way they present their conflicts and technology, but Helldivers 2 leans into the retro sci-fi style that most people love, and it wears its influences on its sleeve. So there are countless direct references to Starship Troopers and aliens throughout the game world, and it's a very stark contrast to other sci-fi games. Halo, Mass Effect, Cyberpunk. They're more about these giant LEDs and super high-tech weaponry. The weapons in combat in this game, it's a futuristic interpretation of what we know in our own world, and that also gives it more of a unique feel when compared to other sci-fi games. Now, the other unique aspect of the game is the tone. Helldivers 2 is an action-packed, over-the-top parody. Yes, you're being thrown into horrific, life-threatening situations, and there's lots of gruesome violence, but it also isn't afraid to get so extreme that it crosses the line into being almost slapstick. The tongue of Helldivers 2 is firmly stuck in the cheek, and that's what makes it fun. It's not trying to tell the super deep story or highlight the horrors of war. It's just trying to make sure you have a good time with the world it created, and that means it never takes itself too seriously. On paper, the situations you're being thrust to are pretty scary. But leaning into the ridiculousness of the setting, it creates this experience that is equal parts serious, exciting, and hilarious once everything starts falling apart around you and your screen gets completely filled with bugs. There's plenty of co-op shooters with massive enemy hordes, we know that, in sci-fi settings as well. But none of them nail the tone like Helldivers 2 does, and that goes a long, long way. But obviously, you can't have a good video game without good gameplay, and put simply, it's fantastic. I'll just say it, this may actually be the best co-op shooter since Left 4 Dead 2. The emphasis on teamwork and cooperation means you'll never leave your buddies behind in the pursuit of your goals, but the addictive gameplay loop means you'll never get bored of doing missions over and over again. You're grinding the XP. Sounds like Call of Duty back in the golden age. The co-op shooter genre has been getting pretty popular in recent years, thanks to games like Deep Rock Galactic, Warhammer 40k Darktide, but Helldivers 2, it's on another level with polish and design. It's not just the great presentation and tone, it's a near perfection of the co-op shooter gameplay that will keep you logging in every single day to keep grinding with your buddies. It is. It also helps that there's lots of planets in this game, all of which have gorgeous and unique landscapes, and the developers have also confirmed they're going to be adding planetary hazards to the mission. So there's so many weapons and gear pieces for you to experiment with. You can refine the playstyle, you can accomplish goals. It's deep, people! But that's also a nice transition into the way the game was distributed, because it was a breath of fresh air. In 2024, most new games are coming out with a $70 price tag, and they're often filled with a bunch of microtransactions on top of that. But Helldivers 2 launched for $50, and the developers have said on multiple occasions they want to earn the right to be a live service instead of just throwing microtransactions at their community hoping for the best, which is absolutely the way to go. In 2024, there's such a such a nice change of pace, and on top of it, this was a PlayStation Studios game that dropped on the PS5 and PC on day one, full crossplay. Means PC players don't have to wait an extra 12 to 18 months to get their hands on it. So by allowing the PC community to be involved with the hype of the campaign from day one, they increase the number of people who are going to buy the game in the launch window. This is not only good for Sony because they make more money, but it's also very good for gamers because it means a consumer now has a chance to choose where they want to play a new game instead of being forced to buy a PS5 in order to play it. Well, just face it, it's kind of a hard sell. Consoles are expensive, and a growing number of gamers are getting fed up with things like paid online and $70 price tags on new games. The fact that Sony dropped this game on PC, day one, $50 price tag, that's huge. Now, in a time when AAA games have massive budgets and diminishing returns on $70 releases, Helldivers 2 was a massive breath of fresh air, every way imaginable. $50, multi-platform, crossplay, prioritizes fun gameplay over everything. Who cares if it doesn't have a giant marketing campaign or a $200 million budget? Gamers don't care about stuff like that. They just want to have fun. So at the end of the day, these are the video games we're talking about. They're not movies, they're not books, they're not TV shows. If you're going to create a successful video game, you have to lean into the aspects of video games that no other medium can provide the consumer. You can get pretty visuals and non-interactive storytelling from movies and television, but you can't get a great interactive experience from them, and that is what Helldivers 2 understands better than almost every game that has come out this year. To quote Reggie from Nintendo, if it's not fun, why bother?